Hey, Buck Bookers, long time no see. It's your boy Buck, and I'm still alive, though just barely. I'm sure you've been wondering where has been all of my Buck's books. I have been missing my beloved Buck and his books. I need to know what to read, and more importantly, what not to read. Where else am I supposed to find this out? Here, we have a situation, and the situation is best explained with a brief explanation of what hyperfixation means. So, a hyperfixation is when people with handsome and exceptionally sharp minds who happen to have been raised on a lot of sugar cereal and loud video games, they gain a new interest and they shut off everything else in their life in order to zero in and learn everything they can about that interest, right? And that happened to me with Taoism. So the way this happened to me is at the end of last year, I read the Bible. You remember I told you I read the Bible. Well, for 365 days, at the end of every day, I would have a little chunk of Bible to read. And that was a nice little cap for the day. But I don't have that anymore because I finished the Bible. I don't want to read it again. And maybe I'll read it again someday. I don't want to read it again right now. So I thought, I'm going to find some Zen. I'm going to do like the Zen. I'm going to find some koans, cheeky sutra to throw at the end of the day. Why not? Tried to find it. Turned out to be really difficult to find any 365-day year Zen books. Did find one called 365 Tao Daily Meditations by Ming Dao Deng. Right. So, for those of you who don't know any old or foreign words, Tao is not Zen, but they are very similar. It was one of the quotes was that Zen is Tao dressed as Buddhism or something like that. And that's a pretty good summary, but that's not what I was after. So I went scrambling and I asked people at work, and I eventually had to go to like some shady Russian website in order to find a 365-day Zen book, and it is worse. It's not very good. I should probably add that to this too. There it is. That's the one. I'm working on that one. But it's not very good. But it's still how I end the day, because they're only just like a page. Like maybe a paragraph. Some of them are only like a sentence, which annoys the hell out of me. But a little quick, little burst of mindfulness. Loving 365 Tao. Loving it. It's so good. It's like got this earthy shamanic component to it. It's all talking about all these tigers and hawks and whatnot. Just stoic philosophy, and of course this predates Stoicism, I think. Taoism, 6th century BCE, China, whereas Stoicism hit the scene about 300 BCE. So, I guess Stoic thought turned out to be Taoist. What do you know? But a lot of that's in there, and so I start with that. Like in the beginning of the day before I do the meditation, it's the only way I can convince myself to meditate in the beginning of the day. It's so good for you, dude. It's so good. It's the best thing you could do that isn't exercise. You need to meditate. And I know that, and I teach that every day. I tell people, I explain to them, wow, almost all of your problems can be solved by meditating. You should probably meditate. And then I just don't. But now I do, because of this Taoism book. Every morning I look forward to reading the little excerpt from it, and I'm like, yeah, that rules. And then I meditate, because I do, and I'm meditating on it, and like it doesn't work that way. I just meditate, and your mind wanders to whatever stupid thing it can. But this frames that up for me, so I actually do it. It's a good way to start the day, and the book is so cool. And I'm like excited about it. I'm so excited about it. I wanted to read more, but I know I can't read ahead because that defeats the purpose of a book that you're supposed to read 365 days a year, read one page, which is the reason I downloaded the book. So I had to get different books. And then I was, as they say up at the Hab, off to the races. I couldn't stop. I slammed through, well, the first one I went at was Tao, the Watercourse Way by the despicable Alan Watts. You may be saying, Buck, why wouldn't you just read the Tao Te Ching, you idiot? That's where this is all from. Well, first of all, that's rude. And second, I have read the Tao Te Ching many years ago, and I gave it 3 stars for some reason. But I think it's just because I breezed through it during like one of those phases, probably right after high school, and I was just trying to read as many classics as possible, and that counted. So I figured, yeah, no, I'm gonna read that obviously, but let's get a refresher. And I was like, Best, you know this story. I keep doing this story. I don't know why I keep doing this. Something's wrong with me. It's a compulsion. It's a compulsion, and I'm trying to address it moving forward. I went on Google and I said, what's the best book to start with reading about Taoism? And of course it took me to Reddit. Of course it did. And of course Reddit said, oh, Alan Watts is great. Alan Watts is not great. Alan Watts sucks, dude. Now, this is not a popular opinion, especially among philosophers, Buddhists, academics, and nerds. But I don't care about the opinions of any of those 4 groups. I mean, maybe Buddhists a little, but honestly not really, because what are they gonna do? Fight me? Like, it's not important. They're not important. Philosopher, shut up. They're not important. But he is the authority on, apparently they just made him the authority on all Eastern thought, just like this white hippie douchebag. They were like, oh yeah, Alan Watts, he is our bridge to all of the Orient. It's not just Buddhism anymore. It's not just Zen. He's in charge of all of it. Let's let him translate the entirety of the Tao. And then it was co-wrote with a guy who actually spoke Chinese, like a Chinese scholar, because Alan Watts died during the writing of this book, so it's his swan song. And the opening is like this preface where it talks about writing the book and how they were hanging out and they'd be studying their little, grimoires of esoterica. And then all of a sudden, Alan Watts would leap to his feet and start making just non-word phonemes and flailing and dancing and giggling because he was so zen and free and uninhibited. And like, I don't know about you, dude, but I want to punch that guy. Like, that's Charlie Manson shit. That's what Charlie Manson does. You're not going to sell me on Alan Watts being this free spirit modern Buddha, just because he can dance and make mouth sounds all of a sudden with it. It sounded embarrassing. Cringe is the nomenclature. Cringe is what we would call it in this day and age. I believe this book was written before cringe was available, which is perhaps why the preface was so cringe. The rest of the book was really more of like a lexicon than anything else. Like, they would talk about different... First, there's this huge chunk of the book that just talks about the efforts to unsuccessfully translate directly between Chinese and English, and all of the different, not only the different interpretations that can be extracted from the Chinese script, but also the pronunciation and how that would shift, as if that mattered at all to the Watercourse Way, which is what we picked the book up for. And then it talks about what Taoism is, and Taoism is like Zen, but on a fortune cookie. Like, if you ever go to the China buffet and you get one of those placemats that has like all the years, like the year of the dragon and the year of the snake, and it's that. You take that and you inject that into Zen, and that's Taoism. And it rules. Like, this is not me. There's more to it. There's also, like, there's sorcery in it. but I don't believe in wizards, so the sorcery is not important to me. And there's something about like the qigong and energy cultivation and stuff like that, and the chi, and I like martial arts, so I believe in those kind of wizards like Shang Tsung. I'm on board with that kind of wizard, so that's why I'm so interested. I'm trying to determine the parameters of the Tao right now, but by virtue of it being the Tao, there are no parameters, which is kind of what Alan Watts hinted at, but badly. So that was about what I expected. And then I picked up, I was like, all right, so let's read the Tao Te Ching. Let's read the actual book. So I went and started looking through translations. There's been so many different translations. The two that I wound up reading at the same time, this is good. I hand selected this one by recommendation because it's supposed to be the most poetic, or among the most poetic while remaining true to the material, because I don't want your poetry, and that's not what this is about. And it's the Tao Te Ching translated by Gia-Fu Feng and Jane English, which, I mean, doesn't get much more direct than that. And at the same time, like, I was flipping back and forth between the two books to like compare. I was also reading one called Everday Tao Te Ching, A Renegade's Practical Guide to Happiness Today, the Tao for the Rest of Us. Why would you have two subtitles, dude? That's too many subtitles. By Pat O'Brien, who is some Texan musician and artist. I don't know. So the one with Jane English, it was good. It read like Revelation. You know, it was a prophecy book. It was, you could smell the incense on it, you know? And it was poetic enough, but it was also meandering. It got difficult to follow, which is nice that I had our boy Pat O'Brien in Everyday Tao Te Ching to refer back to, because his was just like if the entire Tao Te Ching was Bruce Springsteen lyrics. It's all really stripped down and real salt of the earth and really oversimplified to the point that he probably got some of it wrong, but it was punchy and direct enough that I buy it. And that might be my own bias, you know, because I still kind of like Bruce Springsteen, dude. I know I'm washed up. I know that's old people music, but that's the boss. What are you gonna do? You ever hear the Christmas one where he just Santa Claus is coming to town and he keeps laughing? It's pretty good. If you can only read one and you're not interested in the academic aspects of any of this or wizardry, I would highly recommend you stick with Everyday Tao Te Ching. It really is the Tao for the rest of us. It strips it down into these bite-sized, they're like aphorisms, you know? So rather than a big contradictory paragraph about what the Tao is and the Tao is not, and talking like Yoda, he's just like, if you're mean to people, then everything is worse. So be nice and don't stockpile belongings because people will steal them. Whereas if you're happy with what you got, there's nothing to steal. Straightforward, to the point, very, very Taoist. Nailed it. Then I went ahead into Being Taoist by Eva Wong. I don't like Eva Wong. She is much less accessible and like needlessly wordy, and this is a big talk coming from me, I get that. But especially after the three previous books that I had worked on, you know, she was pulling excerpts out of the Tao Te Ching and like writing these interpretations, but the interpretations really just obfuscated what she was trying to communicate, which was pretty clearly communicated in the Tao Te Ching itself. So, but she's like this primary scholar. She's this big deal practitioner of Taoism, of the pre-celestial way and complete reality lineages. And she has translated and written so many books on Tao. So I figured, okay, she's credentialed. Let's give it a shot. She's not my cup of tea. Not my tea ceremony, dude. I mean, that don't let that poison you against her. Maybe that's not my lineage. I don't know. Maybe it's just a miscommunication of there's so many types of Taoism, dude. You have no idea how many types of them. Well, maybe you do. If you're reading this, you probably do. You probably have some more experience than I had. I didn't know anything about Taoism. What I knew about Taoism, I learned from Jackie Chan Adventures prior to this. So it's really opened my eyes to a number of things. Then I went ahead and figured that, okay, so here was my reasoning. Lovin' 365 Tao. Every day. So excited to read it every day. Delighted every day I can apply what this guy is saying to something going on in my life. It's like going to church. Awesome. So I figured should probably look into his other books, right? So I went ahead and grabbed his other books. Next one I banged through was called Each Journey Begins with a Single Step, the Taoist Book of Life. And this was, again, by Ming Dao Deng. This book was sort of like his mood board, you know? It wasn't a super cohesive narrative. It was more a collection of different excerpts from the Tao Te Ching and from the I Ching and from a whole bunch of other like Taoist scripts. There's another one that I haven't read yet. I'm making my way around to it, so I can't tell you the name of it, and I'm probably not going to look it up, but you can do your own research. You have Google. There's only like 3 main texts, and we've covered the other 2. But he just cuts and pastes them from different parts and then tries to arrange these different quotes, aphorisms, little sub-stories into what essentially becomes a concept album. Like he tells a different story of a journey using bits and pieces from all these other texts. And that's cool. You know, it's a neat idea. I didn't mind it, but there wasn't a lot to sink your teeth into there either. And I think the problem there is he didn't get to show off his own writing voice. He's a spectacular writer, is our boy Ming Dao Deng. He's a very good writer, and he didn't really get to write in that. He was just, maybe he translated a little bit, I don't know, but it didn't show, you know. He was just kind of like plug and playing, you know. So, glad I read it. Not bad. It was interesting. I enjoyed myself the whole time, but it's not as memorable as some of the other ones I've already talked about. Yeah? But now, I'm not going to do you the disservice of actually reviewing this one because I am halfway through this one. And the reason that I did this video now is because it's been almost 2 weeks since I did a video before, so I was worried that you guys would have thought I died or abandoned you. I would never abandon you or die. I'm never going to die. And I'm going to read all of these other books too, so I don't know how long it's going to take me before this Taoism hyperfixation fizzles itself out and I move on to my next thing. But it could be another couple of months, and I'm not going to just sideline everything for another couple of months. That's preposterous. So I'm working on The Wandering Taoist by Ming Dao Deng. And this one is a novel where he talks about a mystic named Sayang Quan, and how he gets, he was a spoiled little, like, noble brat, and he is chosen by some wizard, a lot of wizard who sees a blue star on his forehead like an avatar, and says, "Okay, you gotta go up to the mountains to be trained in the Tao." And he didn't want to, but then he eventually goes, and the story just follows it, and I'm like halfway through it, and it's mostly just a means, like a vector by which to communicate Taoist philosophy. And they've wrapped in a whole bunch of like stories that I've already run across, quotes that I've already encountered, and all the other things that I've read. And a couple of like Zen koans showed up in there too, but that's okay. I don't hold that against them because they all seem to be dipping into the same well here. It's really good. I'm really enjoying myself. I obviously, I would say I can't put it down, but I'm here doing this instead of reading it, so I can put it down, but just barely. I'm doing a lot of reading recently. I'm gonna give myself a bit of time off. But no, it's really good. I don't think I'm going to write an actual review unless it either becomes a 5-star best book or it takes a sudden turn and really disappoints me. So just take it on faith that it is good from here, and you should read it. It's what's interesting is he also made it like a kung fu movie. Like, in addition to making it this book that explains Taoism and immersive and historically accurate novel about ancient China, he also has all the elements of a good kung fu movie. Like the master who gets the poison Taoists. There were 5 priests who were taking drugs and they turned their face green, and they were taking concubines and doing all of this naughty behaviors. And the master came to purge them because they are disgracing the Tao church or the temple where they all came from or whatever. And like you could see when they were like threatening one another, you could see how the lips didn't sync up quite with the words they were saying, even as you were reading it, you know. And then they're like fighting on top of poles 20 feet in the air. It's sick. It's a sick book. If you like kung fu movies or anything I've talked about so far, you should read The Wandering Taoist. It's great. I hope it stays great. Okay, so that's as far as I got. I read a whole bunch of other books that are not Tao related, but none of them were good enough to earn their own review, so you will have another one within the week. I promise. I appreciate your patience, and thank you for your faith and sticking around. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, share, whatever else you do. Just start clicking. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in.